Hey guys, welcome back. Well, I finally got my wrench in here, so I can go ahead and try to get this rim to work on this bike so I can get up and driving again. It's been, no pun intended, driving me nuts. So, yeah. So here's what we got going on here if you haven't been following. Yeah, again, the poor lighting issue. As you can see here, get better lighting here. This friggin' poor lighting. There, a little better lighting. Lighting's horrible. But anyway, as you can see here, this is 26-inch rim. And this is for my motorized supercycle. 80cc. If you haven't been following, I'll bring you up to speed really quick. So what I got going on here is I needed to change out rear rims. This is an alright rear rim, but it's missing a spoke now and it needs to be trued up. So, and the sprocket needs to be remounted properly and all that stuff. So I went ahead and, I bought another rear rim. Okay, put the rear rim on right out the bat on the freewheel side, on this side here, the pedal side, right off the bat. Hey, sweetheart. The first gear on it, which is really the only gear I use, the smallest gear on the freewheel, which is really the only gear I use for pedaling, just to get her started, was spun out. So I had to, because I don't have the derailleur set, I had to pull the cable tighter and lock it in place in order to get it to the second gear up on that freewheel. Okay, cool, whatever. Pedal it, try to get it started, bam, instant derails. Come to find out, I've been trying to run a rim that's got 120 millimeter hardware in it and axle on a frame that's 135 millimeter. So, I took the rim, both rims to the shop, and I said, listen guys, all I need done here is change out these axles. Change this axle and hardware over to the other rim. And that way it would line up, right? And that would stop the derailing issues. And because no matter which way you swing it, a 26-inch rim is a 26-inch rim. The internal diameters of the hub are probably going to be the same. It's just two different size hardware. So I need the 135 millimeter hardware in that other rim. Now, I wasn't sure if that was the issue or not when I first started, but I assumed it was, because visually I could even see that the axle was shorter and all that. So anyway, the shop didn't do that. Instead, what they did is they threw an inner tube on this rim that I wanted them to just take the axle out of and put it in the other rim. And it didn't need an inner tube, so why they did that, I don't know. But anyway, thank you. And when I got the rim back, well, the bearings weren't as good as they were when I first brought the rim to them. I could go like this and it would actually spin. You know what I mean? Now it's like this. So I don't know what they did, but I'm not impressed. But regardless, I said, frig it, I'll just do it myself then, right? Which is something I should have done in the first place. I don't know why the shop didn't do it right. They just seem to not want to help me. So, something I should have done in the first place, just do it myself. Come to find out, you need special tools, right? So, finally, first I got this, because I figure it's always good to be able to measure things. And then, got the freewheel puller. Pulled the freewheel out the rim. Okay, that's why there's no freewheel on that rim right now, because I did pull the freewheel off the rim. Later in this video, you will see me pulling the freewheel off the other rim, so we'll get into that more after. Then I found out, crap, I can't go any further, because to get this lock nut off, in order to pull the outer races, or whatever you want to call it, for the bearings off, in order to pull the axle out, you need the special wrench to fit on there. It is 15 millimeter, but it's awfully thin, so a regular box wrench generally won't fit on it. At least for getting the lock nut off. Once the lock nut's off, I'm sure you could probably use a regular box wrench if you needed to. So, had to make another order and wait. Finally got it. 15 millimeter thin box wrench tool, bicycle tool. Yeah, it should be handy for other things too. But see, now I can get on there with this. there's only 2 little slots on them, so now that can be, I can do this. So with that being said, let's do this. And this is my first time ever doing this, so you guys get to watch me do amateur bicycle mechanic. Because, I am a certified small engine mechanic, but I am not a bicycle mechanic. And this is my first time ever pulling an axle on a bicycle rim, so this should be interesting. I did watch one video. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so even though I'm amateur at this, I'm still going to walk through it. First things first, if you've never done one of these before, first things first is you got to pull the hub, right? Or pull the hub, pull the freewheel. So, the freewheel does thread on like this. Generally, they'll be on really tight if you have never removed it before. But this one removed easy because they were already removed. That's one thing the shop did do correctly, is move the freewheels around for me. Now, you get the freewheel pulling tool, slide on there, take a 1-inch, right? Or you can use a box wrench or whatever, but 1 inch. Now, if it's going to come off really hard, you might have to use a pry bar, like a torque bar or whatever. And, but once you do get it loosened, then it just, will do this. It'll just spin off until it's unthreaded, and then you can just pull it once it's unthreaded. Like that. So, that's a demonstration, but you'll see exactly how it goes when I take it off the other rim. But then you get the freewheel off. Now the next thing you probably want to do, and at least I think is a good idea, is you probably would want to measure your dimension from distance from the base, the end of the axle to the lock nut on both sides, just for reference, just in case things get moved when you go to swap it over. You still want everything to line up, right? So you probably want to make sure that this doesn't get changed on you by accident. So it's probably good to measure that. So let's do that right now. Okay, so I'll turn this on. Hi, Angelica. This is my rescue cat. Saved her and all 6 of her kittens. Found good homes for them. And now she's a happy, spaded kitty. So anyway, turn the micrometer on. Veneer caliper, whatever you call them. Okay. Now, I'm going to use the depth gauge to measure this. And basically, I'm just going to put it against the axle. Well, make sure it's zeroed first. Calibrate it to 0 first. It is. Yeah, okay. Just double check that though. Oh, now we get a negative. We don't want that. There. Calibrate. Okay. Now, just simply do this. Bloop. Okay, what do we got for a reading here? Looks like 27.2 millimeters. That can switch to inches as well. So, 27.2 millimeters. What's that in inches? I'm not going to bother doing the conversion because this can do it for me. In inches, 1.07 inches. Oh, I just budged it. But it was 1.07 inches. Double check that though. Okay, so just double check that. We got 27.2 millimeters and 1.07 of an inch. So that is what is the freewheel side, we'll call it. So now we'll put her back to 0 and we'll check the other side and see what we're looking at here. I'm going to do this with 2 hands because I like to do it gently there, but you get the idea of how to use this here. So on this side we got 27.8. So it's off by a little bit as far as, whether it's centered in the axle or not. But you got to remember that one side has a spacer and the other side doesn't. That may be normal. Hopefully it is. Hopefully nothing's been adjusted at that shop without me knowing. I don't think they have to be exactly equal on each side. You just have to remember where they were on each side or make note of it. So 27.8, and then in inches that's 1.09. So our freewheel side, where there is a spacer, the lock nut ends up at 1.07 of an inch, or 27.2 millimeters. And on our, I'm going to call it the sprocket side, but instead of going right, left, whatever, motor sprocket side, I'm going to say 44T sprocket side. Is 1.09 inch. Yeah, the pen just freaking broke on me. 1.09 inch. And what was the millimeters again? 27.8, yeah. 27.8. So if they are supposed to be equal, I mean, that's not a whole lot. But I don't know if they're supposed to be equal or not, or if that, how much that matters. So we'll just keep that in mind as we do this. May have to adjust them. We'll see. I don't think so, though. I think that's just basically where they're sitting. And this rim did line up. This train did line up with the motor with this rim. So I'm certain by just leaving it the way it is and just moving the axle over to the other rim, that should do the job. And using the hardware too. So let's move on with this. Set the measuring tool aside. I need the 15 millimeter. We're going to need the 15 millimeter. I'm not sure what kind of wrench you call it, but it's just a standard. Well, not standard. It's a box wrench, but it's a bike, specialized bike tool. That really, you do need it for this. Otherwise, you will not. Good luck. You might be able to use needle nose pliers and vice grip them down or something. I don't know. Needle nose vice grips might work. I don't know, but better off getting that. And then you'll need a 15 millimeter for the lock nut. Or sorry, it's 15, isn't it? Why is this an 18? Yeah, no, sorry. You need an 18 millimeter for the lock nut. Okay, so let's get to doing that. There's two notches here, so get it around there. And then I can't do this with one hand, but I'm just going to show how it's basically done. You know, obviously, you know, and you remove the lock nut. So let's do that. Yeah. So I'm going to remove that lock nut, but that's how you do it. Try something here, see if I can get the camera view on here while I do this. Sorry if I didn't quite get it in the shot, but all right. Get that on there. Find little notches. Just break that free. There we go. And then you spin the lock nut off. On this side, there's no spacer. I don't know if it's supposed to have one, or if this particular one doesn't, or if some rims do have spacers on both sides, and depending on just your frame and shit. Excuse my language, on your frame and whatnot. I don't know. But this side doesn't have a spacer. The other side does. But whatever. There's our shot. Okay, so now we get the lock nut off on this side. And as you can see here now, we just got left is, on this side anyway, is the outer race collar. And then, so we're going to flip the rim around. Set the hardware somewhere where we won't lose it. It's right there, I guess. And same deal on this side. You got to remove the lock nut. So, again, see if we can get some camera here. Poor lighting and all that. Horrible camera work, I know, guys. I'm sorry. I never claimed to be a professional cameraman. Alright, I'll take the lock nut off on this side. This one was already fairly loose because I've already kind of done this, just checking it, but I really want to get it on video. Just so you guys can watch me fail miserably on video. But you never know, maybe I won't. So, yeah, we get that lock nut off. And keep in mind now, I got my measurements there now, right? So, I know where the lock nut and stuff should sit once the spacers and everything in. Now, definitely want to remember, messenger, definitely want to remember too, that this side has the spacer. This is the freewheel side. So, in my case anyway, so I want to make sure the spacer goes back on the right side, the freewheel side. I wouldn't want to frig up and put the spacer on the other side. That may screw it all up and put it out of line even worse. So, spacer on this side. So, we'll set that aside. And if I really didn't think I'd remember, I'd set it down on a piece of paper and write it down. Freewheel side. But what I can actually do is just set it by the freewheel like this. And then I know that's the freewheel side. Alright, so now we need to attack. This is where it gets sketchy because I've never done this before. But we need to, well, remove these this outer race. I don't think it matters which side you remove first. And see, I don't know if you can see, but more than likely, this is where it'd be nice to have two of these style wrenches, but I only got one. But you only need one, because I believe you can use a 15 mil box wrench once the lock nuts are off on the other side, but you need to be able to hold it, or even vice grips would probably do the trick, or whatever, right? But you got to hold the other side to be able to turn it out. So that's what I got to do. So we'll get a wrench for that. Yeah, here's a 15 mil standard box wrench, and it will fit on that once you get the lock nuts off. So I can use that on the other side to hold it, just to undo this. So that way we can, well, get at the ball bearings, and then we can pull the axle out. So that's what we need to do. Try to get it on camera for you guys. Sorry once again if I don't. And I review this and realize I didn't. Okay. That might be in the shot. We'll see. Never mind. Let's try that, see if I can record this for you guys. So, box wrench, or no, the specialized tool I'm going to use on one side, and then just standard 15 mil. That's an 18. Standard 15 mil. I'll hold the other side. And like I said, I don't believe it really matters which side you pull out and which cap you take off first. I think what matters is that you're just taking one of the caps off and getting at the ball bearings and pulling the axle out on whichever side that you don't take the cap off. So I'm going to take the cap off on the freewheel side. Ooh, and that was already loose. So the shop was into this, because I haven't touched that yet. And that was only finger tight. So God only knows what they did to my bearings. I know the bearings were great before I brought it in there. Let's get this off, find out. Oh, this is a little different than what I was expecting. Okay, the bearings are on an outer race ring or something. Okay, so it's not quite like what I saw in the video here, but I think we're going to be okay. You got to take that all the way off in order to pull the axle out. But yeah, okay, this is the outer race. It's just a little different than what I've watched in the video. I guess there's different designs, obviously, but same idea. You got your ball bearings in there, and then an outer race to hold them. And I think it is a good idea to count them. So first, what we're going to do though is we're just going to continue pulling the axle off all the way. Pull the axle right out, or get this axle nut off. Yeah, I don't want to pull out the other side just yet because there are ball bearings, and I don't want to lose them just yet. Okay, come on. Greasy. Very contaminated grease too, it seems. Okay, now we're going to do this. Get that outer race out. So I guess this particular one has an outer race, and then this goes against the outer race, holding the bearings in place, apparently, like so. Like so, when I haven't even displayed it. Let's see. Lots of grease. Yuck. Like so. So, okay. So here's our bearings. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks like 9 of them, which is standard from what I've heard. So, generally you would want a magnet for this. I don't know where my magnet stick is, so I'm not going to bother with the magnet. Just going to pull these bearings out. They're pretty greasy anyway. They should stick to whatever I grab them with. Just try not to lose them. 1, 2, 3. And we got 4, 5. And jog, look out. And this grease is bad looking. If he repacked this with grease, he put some contaminated grease in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9. Yeah, so there's 9. So the other side would have 9 too. Okay. Yeah, he repacked it with grease, but ugh. Nasty looking grease. Little wonder they weren't working better. The bearings don't look too bad, so once they're cleaned up, I think we could probably still use them. So now, get the bearings on that side, flip it around, from what I understand. And you want to pull your axle on this side. Look, we got one bearing stuck to it right here already. Alright. Now, keep those separate on this side. Here's your stopper. Oh, see, and I just turned it. Oof, this is why you measure, right? Because now I just adjusted it a little teeny bit, and that can adjust where it's going to sit, right? I meant to measure that before I even touched it. Whatever, though. I already know roughly where it needs to sit. That's why we took the measurements at first. That's your stopper, though. That's going to determine where your axle sits in the rim and how the rim sits within your frame. This is important that the stopper is set at the right spot, and it's important that you have the right hardware and the right length axle. That's why this rim wouldn't work and the chain kept trying to derail, because this sprocket's sitting too far in because it doesn't line up the same. So, I had to learn that all on my own. Like I said, I'm no bicycle mechanic, I'm a small engine mechanic. So anyway, we got 9 bearings in this side too. I already know, because if there's 9 on one side, obviously there's 9 on the other. So we'll pull them out. Not losing them here. And the grease helps with not losing them because it sticks to stuff, right? This is very gross grease, very contaminated grease. If he repacked it with grease, he definitely did a horrible job, and he knew that it would probably make the bearings worse. There's no way he could not have. He's a professional bicycle mechanic. I'm not even a professional bicycle mechanic. I know this. Okay, so there, the axle's out. So now we got to do the same to the other rim. I'm not going to bother cleaning any of this up because I'm using all this in the other rim. So we got to do that to the other rim. Now, also, when we take the other rim off, we're not going to have to bother measuring any of this because it's not going to matter as much because we're not going to be using this rim. I may take the measurements anyway, just be on the safe side, but got to get the rim off the bike first. But that's part 1. We got the axle removed. Stay tuned for part 2, where we put the axle into the frame, or into this rim, and hopefully get this bike running again. I really miss driving my supercycle. Okay, thanks for watching so far. Stay tuned for part 2. Now we get some parts too, by the way. So here I got to clean this all up. So in part 2 you'll see it all nice and clean by then. But we got 9 bearings over here in our lock nut. Okay. And then we got I should have wrote this down, but it's for the freewheel side. I'm probably going to write down. We got our spacer and our lock nut for the freewheel side. Then 9 ball bearings over here. And it looks like they're pretty good. They just need to be cleaned up. So once they're cleaned up and some new red tack grease is put in it, they'll probably spin pretty good. So it's just a matter of making sure this is set correctly once it's in there, so the chain does not derail any longer. So part 2, that's what part 2 will be about. This video is going a little bit longer than I expected. So hey, there you go. An amateur pulling the axle out of a first time out of a rear rim. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. Now I'm going to clean up these bearings like I said. And yeah, part 1. Stay tuned for part 2. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.